Good morning, I'm Nikki and I'm here today at the Udder House in South Kensington to launch the Giant Leap podcast in conversations with, and I'll be speaking to leading luminaries from the luxury and finance marketing sector, and we'll be finding out how the current landscape of social, technological, economic and political upheaval is affecting our industry today. Let's go inside and have a look.
Hi, my name is Ben Lilly and I'm the founder of Giant Leap Digital. We're a luxury marketing agency focusing on helping luxury and finance brands to connect with wealth audiences.
Hello and welcome to this Giant Leap podcast series in conversations with, and I'm Nikki and I'm here today with Ben Lilly, who is the founder of Giant Leap Digital. Ben, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Hi, Nikki. Thank you so much for inviting me along today and to be a part of this wonderful series. I'm really pleased that we're getting this off the ground and talking to some really interesting guests. I've been there in the background listening away to people as they're talking about their stories, and I think it's going to be a great series. So thank you so much for narrating and pulling it all together. It's been very kind of you. A little bit about me. We formed Giant Leap a few years back after I exited another agency, Verb Brands. We specialize in the luxury space. That's our kind of bread and butter, luxury and finance space. And we help brands to connect with high net worth audiences. That's kind of the promise of what we do. So we look at people's, we act a bit like a consultancy in the fact that we want to pick apart what the real marketing challenge is that people are facing, and then build teams around their needs. What is it that they really need to solve? What is the marketing challenge that they've got? And how can we best solve that? And how do we do that in the most efficient manner? So we spin up teams from all sorts of backgrounds, from branding through to social media, through to videography. We've got a film crew in here today to help us with this. We've got data scientists, we've got programmatic teams. So we've got people who are specialized in the influencer world. So pretty much whatever somebody's trying to achieve, we can normally spin up a team that helps to solve that marketing challenge. But I suppose the background that I come from, and the reason why people might find it interesting talking to us, is we always put the lens on around efficiency. How do we drive the best return for our clients? Over and above, just putting media and stories out there, how do we make sure that really works for a brand and turn the marketing activity really into an engine to help empower their business going forwards? So that's what I'm passionate about. That's what I'm really keen to achieve with our clients. And it's resonating. We've got brands from all the way from super yachts through to high-end retail and everything in between, hotels and finance brands. And so we're in a good space. We're growing fast, and obviously the story that we're talking about is resonating with people.
Thank you for having me today as well. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
And also, I think your approach to the consultants and the teams that you use is quite different. How is that different to, let's say, a traditional agency?
Yeah, I suppose when I set this up, I wanted to solve a challenge. I could see that there were two disadvantages with using an agency. One was the fact that clients tend to get sold a dream. By an agency. They get the senior team going into a pitch and they get this wonderful narrative that they buy into. But then actually when they get to deliver the project, it's often handed down to juniors within the team. So the quality falls away, the experience falls away, the knowledge of how they can build strong programs falls away. So I wanted to solve that challenge for clients. That's not just me wanting to do a better job. It's actually, with my own vested interest at heart. If we deliver good projects, our clients stay longer. It's simple. So we want to deliver strong projects, good quality work, but it means that our clients will be retained. But I also wanted to solve the challenge with our teams. I could see in agencies, often people were getting burnt out. People would come into an agency, they'd work really hard, particularly the good people would be laddered up to work on numerous projects, normally with very tight deadlines, and people were getting burnt out. So our agency is built differently. We only work with senior people. We only work with people who've got 10 plus years experience in their chosen field. So they are senior, they are experienced practitioners in what they do. It means we deliver high quality work. And it means that we get better client retention as a result of that. But we also offer our teams full flexibility. So all our teams work remotely. We have a point of presence here in Mayfair, which we use for meetings and for get-togethers and team events, etc. But other than that, all our teams work remotely, and people enjoy that. They like the balance, so they can do bath time and the kids' cool play and other things which are important to their lives without having to constantly flog themselves up and down on the trains to get to London. It also empowers people. So the other radical thing that we're doing, which other agencies don't really do, is that we are saying we don't have a core set working time. There is no core set working hours. So we empower our teams to work whenever they see fit, as long as they get the work done to a high standard on the deadline which we set. Then how they do it, how they get there, we don't care. So we've got some people who work right the way through the weekend to bash out a really good piece of work, and then take Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday back because they've hit that deadline. Other people who work at 3 o'clock in the morning because they're doing the breastfeed. That's okay. We've got no stipulation over when people work, so they get a lot of flexibility and a lot of empowerment to run the projects as they see fit. And again, another interesting point about this is when we first started out, we did start to measure time. We did look at how people were spending their time on Giant Leap, and the really interesting stat around this is typically we run an agency a 37.5-hour week, but for the people that we employ, they're running a 42-hour week without us even asking them to. They're putting in more time, more effort, more energy into their projects because they really love them. They believe in them and they want to make them their own. So just by their own volition, without us sitting on them and beating them to do it, they're going out and putting more time into their projects. So
sounds like a great place for a client to be.
Can
you mention any of the clients that you've currently got?
We can, yeah. We've got a hotel group called Almanac. They've got a number of European properties. We've got another wellness brand called Chenu, and they are a Swiss-based wellness clinic. We've got San Lorenzo, who is a super yacht company. We've got Payoneer. They're the largest payment solution provider in the world. So if you're using Amazon or Apple Pay or Airbnb, the payment system behind that is actually Payoneer. So they're a massive global company. I'm trying to think of all the other ones that we've got off the top of my head. Anyway, we've got a numbers, but they're all in. They're not all in the same sector, but the thing that ties them together is this want to access wealth audiences, and that's what we are. And that's what we're passionate about.
Let's talk about the audiences for a moment as well.
Sure.
So the thing about people of a certain means with a certain amount of wealth is they do tend to be global, and they do tend to be interested in multiple different ways of investing and acquiring and enjoying their wealth. So have you got any insights you can share with us about how a wealthy person perhaps moves from their fintech to their yacht to their real estate and then their hospitality, brands?
It's interesting. As your wealth grows, or the understanding is, as your wealth grows, your desire for anonymity grows. So if you make £1 million, then actually you want to show it off. You go out and buy the fast car, you buy the big Rolex watch, you buy the flashy handbag, and you show to your mates, you show to your cohort, look, I've made it. I've been successful. I've reached the pinnacle of my status. I'm look at me. I'm on the scene. But actually, when your wealth grows past that, say to 30 million or 60 million, then a lot of these people are often in the public eye for one reason or another. But equally, they want to think about their security, and they want to try and remove themselves from the visibility, both online, their online visibility, but also the way in which they represent themselves. So there's been for a little while now a movement towards something called silent luxury, where people wear completely unbranded clothes. They are branded, don't get me wrong, they are branded. They are the very beautiful boutique designers that make these garments, but they're unbranded. They're to the outside untrained eye, you wouldn't know that was a very expensive baseball cap, for example. But equally, your anonymity grows in other directions. So rather than going to your villa in Spain for your holiday, you choose to go to your yacht. And you go to your yacht because you can't get papped. and you know the security. People can't wade through the water to get to you. You don't need to put security on your boat. You know, your boat is an island in the middle of the ocean. So it gives them anonymity, it gives them this security. People choose to fly by private jet, again, because they don't want to be mobbed by the masses at an airport. You know, it gives them that anonymity and also flexibility. It gives them, you know, they can fly whenever they want, however they want, and they know it's done in comfort. But so we see this progression as your wealth increases, that your desire for being removed from the normal hubbub of what we would consider wealth to be greater. Does that help answer the question?
I think so, yeah. That's the kind of the consumption side of it. But I recently did some research as well, and I found a really interesting kind of dichotomy.
Oh, yeah.
Which is where you might be outwardly appearing to desire more privacy, but at the same time, the wealthier you get, the more outwardly focused you become, because you're actually now relying on larger teams of, like, you start out with tens and then maybe hundreds and then thousands and then hundreds of thousands of people, and you can't get anything done on your own. So, like, you start to become more outwardly focused. It's about getting other people to do things for you. So while being private, you still need to be able to do that too. And maybe the family office is a good example of that. Sort of think about Succession, the programme, and that family and the way they have to influence, you know, the board members and the people at the top of the tree, and then those people influence the rest of the company. So have you come across that much with your audiences?
We do, in the fact that people, and so if we translate that to online, we see that typically somebody who's a billionaire, we actually, billionaires we know a huge amount about. There's a limited number of them in the world, and we know a huge amount about them. We know what company they're on, we know what their wealth is, we know where they live, we know what hobbies they have, we know what interests they have. So we know a lot about that demographic. However, targeting them is very difficult because they are removed. You know, you will not find them on LinkedIn. You probably won't be, they will be using their phones probably for social media, but actually they will not be engaging with brands. They use their family office to buy something. If they want to buy a private jet, they don't call up the private jet company and say, can I buy a G6, please? They get their family office to do it. And they know through that they get security as well. In one of these podcast series, we talked to Kate, who runs Hundle, and they run a family office. And they do all the due diligence for them. So it's not just about buying the jet, it's about making sure that is the right jet and it fits the needs of the family and it has the right pedigree and kudos and assurances behind it. And a family office does all that for them, so that a lot of legwork and headache is taken away from them by being that one step removed. So as a marketeer, if we're trying to target a billionaire, say if we're selling a super yacht and we want to try and engage with those people, then we know that going directly to that person is probably an ineffective manner. But we can go through their network. We know who their family office is. We know who their PAs are. We know who their supporting family are. We know who their wives are. So, you know, you're not targeting perhaps a person with wealth directly, but you're targeting the network around them, and they then influence the decision maker. So the approach to targeting someone at the very, very top end of the wealth spectrum does change.
I think as well, I totally agree, and I think there's another side to that as well, which is like once you've got that person, that person's network to be interested and sort of in the buying cycle of the product, and then the billionaire becomes the customer, then being able to somehow get that billionaire to show the thing that they've got to their other billionaire friends becomes very effective, because I found it's the whisper networks, the trust networks that seem to be the most effective thing. So what are some things that marketers can do to leverage the customers that they already have?
Yeah, that's what you're talking about billionaires now. You're talking about that particular audience type.
The higher, the more pronounced it is, I think, but it's still relevant, isn't it, to even the mass affluent and the high net worths? Yeah,
I agree that there's this old adage that you always want what your neighbour's got. You always want to have beer, and they live in a cohort. As your wealth increases, you live in that cohort. So let's talk about somebody who's just become a millionaire. Actually, they're not satisfied with that. They want to have £5 million in the bank. So they then look at the people who have £5 million in the bank and say, well, what kind of world do they live in? What kind of things are they doing that I should be a part of? Because I want to elevate my status even further. people who've got 5 million, look at the people who've got 30 million, and so on and so on and so on. And actually, the barrier to entry is actually the amount of money. To buy a private jet is 60 million quid. Some people have got that, but even if you've got 30 million in the bank, you can't afford to buy a private jet. But you can rent one. So actually, the kudos that you get perhaps from your peer group is noted. If you can go out and buy a private jet, is that you're in a different league to somebody who just charters one. And the same with a boat. Do you charter a boat or do you actually own the boat? So, but you're right. So once you're in that cohort, how do you then use that cohort to send out the same message as you? How do you get them to be mimicking each other? And I think that's really interesting. I think Succession actually was really good at doing that, to show that within that echelon of the super wealthy, they do all recognize the same thing. They all wear unbranded clothes, but they know what those brands are. They recognize it. And it's very cool. They get that that's a particular way and look and style, and not everybody can afford to do that. But for the untrained eye, you'd have no idea.
I think there's a thing as well. Like, I used to work at Bentley, and one of the stories that we would hear a lot would be that perhaps some wealthy person had gone into the dealership, dressed rather scruffily, wearing trainers, and that maybe this was more like back in 2015. So at the time, the CEO of Bentley was a suit-wearing, very kind of upstanding traditionalist, and he just couldn't understand that anyone who could possibly drive a Bentley could be dressed so scruffily. Right. But then you look at like Brian Cox, even on Succession, for example, looks pretty scruffy some of the time. Yeah. And it's actually a badge of status, surely, to be able to be the top of a company and be able to do that. You sort of look at people like Jack Dorsey, who started out Twitter before Elon owned it, and just famous for meditating 4 hours at a stretch and saying that he could get more done that way. Yeah. So I think there's something about kind of outwardly and openly being able to flaunt the rules as well.
Well, a lot of the people at that very top echelon are company owners and founders as well. I find that the people with billionaire bank accounts have typically come from one of two industries. They either come out the finance space and made a lot of money in finance, or they've come out the tech space. And they are, by their very nature, mavericks and game changers, trendsetters by their nature, and they push the boundaries. So, perhaps what was done 20 years ago and the way you should look and act and be respected is different today. And I think that's part of what this whole podcast series is about, is to show how that wealth is changing, how people are engaging with brands in a very different manner to perhaps what they did do before. What the generation today wants and the wealth of today wants is very different from what it was even 10 years ago. So hopefully some of those stories we've teased out through this. I
think we've got some really great stories actually from Kay, who was the consultant from Net-a-Porter. Yeah. She had some really great stories about sustainability. Great. We've got Michael coming in from 111 Skin, so we can hear all about the trends that are driving the longevity and desires from that industry. Yeah. Who else have we had? We had the wonderful Naomi this morning.
Yeah, she's amazing.
From the other house, which we're in right now.
Yeah. So Naomi this morning, I think, is a real example of how wealth is changing. Like, this place we're in today is absolutely fantastic. It's a phenomenal venue, and no expense has been spared on building it. But this is very different to what people would have perceived a hotel or even a private members club to be even 10 years ago. You would have had a choice of going to probably quite a stuffy members club with lots of leatherback chairs and old smoky books, or you'd have gone to a hotel again, which would have probably been quite formal and probably a 5-star hotel, which is normally silver service and all the rest of it. This is neither of those. It's very contemporary. It's very relaxed. It's very jazzy. It's bold, but it's really comfortable, and it's luxury. It is. Everything, every inch of it oozes luxury, and it's lovely. But this is a massive change, and it's flexible as well. I know Naomi was banging on about this morning, but not banging on, but she was talking about it this morning. But it's really flexible. They're encouraging people to come here and work, and with the rise of people working from home, what a great space to come and, if you're spending a day in town, why not come here? Like, this is lovely.
I think what was really interesting about Naomi as well was she wasn't coming at it from a sort of, I want to create a luxury space. She really knows her audience.
She does, yeah.
She had noticed that there was a gap in the market,
Yeah.
and she's fulfilling it. And it just so happens that, in fact, it's not astronomically priced either. But so you could afford at a stretch to come here, but at the same time, if you were super wealthy, you might choose to come here because it's relaxed.
Yeah.
And that's quite interesting, because we are seeing a blending of the cohorts, like with the younger generation as well, wanting more experiences that can result in them wanting to hang out with more different people, not just the ones prescribed by their birthright. It is very interesting how it's all becoming a sort of more of a melting pot.
They run events here which are very diverse. I've been here for art exhibitions. Last night they had a property forum. It's very different. What the kind of things, talking about cohorts and mixing people together, they're deliberately doing that here. It's fantastic. I think it's a great example of how wealth is changing and how people want, how people see things moving forwards.
The other one I really loved was Kate from the private family office, and the stories she had to tell about the way people are now investing in alternative assets that they can enjoy as well as own.
Yeah. But the thing, I don't know whether we tease it out or not, but one of the things I know that they see and monitor is the way in which tastes are changing. So, for example, when people go to buy art, if you're young now and you're wealthy, you don't necessarily follow the set patterns that your parents did. You don't necessarily go to your art dealer or to a collector or to a gallery and get their advice on what master you want to buy or what artist you want to follow. People are using Instagram. It's a technology they're really used to, and something they're familiar with, and they're scrolling through it and they're putting a bit of intelligence behind it. They're going like, right, this person's got 250,000 followers. I can see that they've got these particular galleries that are following them. I think they're probably going to go pop in a bit, like they're about to go big time. I'm going to buy their whole collection.
Yeah,
done.
Absolutely.
Straight to source, can bypass all the traditional models altogether, and they've bought an art collection.
Yeah,
that is a massive change. That's a massive shift away from, it's as age as the hills. You talk to an art dealer. The art dealer provides information on different collectors. You go to a particular auction. It's a very set pattern.
The fractional ownership was really interesting as well, because it's true about the Instagram purchasing, and my husband has bought a Damien Hirst through Instagram, so I know that's true. We're not particularly wealthy, but it's democratizing and making it more accessible to be able to find out about these things, and if you know it's going to be a good investment, you can. But the other interesting part was where she was saying, really, huge works of art are being fractionalized so that lots of people can own a little piece of it. And the thing is still preserved. It's not being cut up into tiny pieces and sent around the place. But that's pretty cool if you could say, I own the Mona Lisa's eye.
Yeah, that's cool, isn't it? Yeah. You just want a photograph of it, wouldn't you? Stick it in your pocket.
So much is changing and always faster and faster. And AI is only going to accelerate that. And then quantum as well. I mean, what's next? What's next for Giant Leap?
Yeah. For Giant Leap, we are growing quickly. I'm a little bit nervous about what's going on in the world at the moment. I think lots of people will recognise that. We don't quite know what's going on in America at the moment and how that's going to impact us. So if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd say probably that we need to look at the Middle East as a bigger market for us. And also it'd be naive of us to ignore China. China will be the largest consumer of luxury brands by 2030 by a long way. And for us not to be a part of that change in landscape would be naive. That's both taking brands out of China because they're building their own luxury brand set, and it's also taking Western brands into China. So, we're looking at that quite closely. But, we then set against a backdrop of geopolitical tensions at the moment, tariff wars going on. So I'm not too sure how that's going to pan out. But if I look at this agnostically, then our goals probably would be to expand into those two regions. The interesting thing about us at the moment, again, it's a really interesting point, is we don't actually have a UK client. We don't have one. All our clients are international.
So Italy, Switzerland,
the US, Singapore, Spain, Austria, Czech Republic. Got good European set, and then we've got American clients and Far East as well. But the reason why that's really interesting is because I think the UK market at the moment is flatlining. Like we haven't had any growth in the UK for a number of years, and it continues. I think growth is going to be stunted, particularly for the next 4 years. No matter what Labour do to try and stimulate the economy, I can't see that skyrocketing where we're at the moment. So where's the growth for us? It has to be international. So yeah.
I think we need to move to Paris.
Yes, wouldn't that be nice? Yeah.
Actually, there's no need, is there? Because everything that we do is remote. If we need people in Paris, we'll get people in Paris.
Yeah, we do. And I mean, we do. We have one of our projects actually is a global project with a very large brand, and we're actually spinning up teams in 9 different markets. But we're doing that all from the UK. So yeah, we can act very flexibly. But this also goes back to our model. Like at Christmas time, I was in Doha. I was working, but I was in Doha. I don't have to be sat in London to do my job. I can be anywhere really in the world as long as I've got an internet connection.
Just work from anywhere.
Yeah.
Working from the other house today.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
And what's next, do you think, for luxury and wealth audiences? Is it just rich getting richer, or is everyone getting richer, or is there a great divide? How does that affect the way that brands should behave?
That's a big question, isn't it?
No pressure.
No pressure. Again, I think the rich getting richer is an inevitability. I think it does depend on what happens on the global market. A lot of people's wealth is tied to stock valuations. Stocks at the moment are taking a nosedive. So, but I don't think that's a long-term trend. I think the wealth will continue to rise. That said, since 2010, we've doubled the number of billionaires that there are in the world. Less than 10 years, right? Or just over 10 years. So, wealth will continue to grow, and that higher end of the market will continue to grow at an excessive rate.
And thankfully, a greater proportion of those are women.
Yeah. Well, we found that out through this podcast, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great to see. And also, I think that wealth will change in the fact that at the moment, people talk about this great wealth transfer that's happening. So $67 trillion worth of wealth is handing down from the last generation to the next generation, and that's happening over the next 10 years. So again, we are seeing that tastes and interests and hobbies and buying capability is changing. People don't want to have an old master on the wall. They want to have a collection of sneakers that they're really proud of, or a watch collection, or an NFT collection. That to them is more real, more tangible, and more fitting to their lifestyle than having a gallery with your name on it.
Yeah, I'd say as well, don't underestimate the impact that the younger generation can have even before they've inherited the wealth. So in some recent research I was doing, it was about this family, and the patriarch of the family still owns all the wealth, but actually his sons were the ones that had decided to buy several football clubs. Yeah. And he openly said, I'm not really into these investments, but they were very passionate about it. Yeah. So we've done this. I think that's really interesting as well. It's difficult to track the wealth, but it also kind of has an osmosis effect on the families and the kind of people around it. So.
But also, as this higher end of the market become very wealthy, and it passes down to a new generation, that the passions that people have changed. My parents' generation, they used investments in things like oil and tobacco and staple, the defence, all those kind of staple industries that they knew would go up in value. People are less, or the next generation are less concerned about the value of it, but the efficacy of it. Is it a sustainable business? Does it have the right moral compass? Is it something that I would actually want to be investing in rather than I have to invest in it just because I want to get richer? So the way in which people are using their money is changing, and hopefully it's pushing the right agenda. Hopefully it does benefit the world, not just the individual.
And so it's really important to understand this, obviously, when marketing to these audiences. So I think if you could leave an audience of luxury marketers with a parting piece of wisdom from Ben Lilly, what would you say?
Come and talk to me. Parting piece of wisdom. Everybody said it actually on this podcast. I never expected this when we put this together, but ultimately it's about knowing who your audience is. And actually this goes across everything that we do, whether it's in the wealth space or in traditional marketing. Brands typically, or have done in the past, talked about it from a brand first perspective. And we have brands who also do this. But actually it's kind of flipping it on its head to say, what is it that my audience need and how do I meet that need with my brand and my product? And so flipping it around. And that makes it much more tangible, much more real, and the likelihood of driving better sales, better conversions, better relationships with your clients is going to improve from looking at it through that lens.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, lovely to be
and
here.
thank you for organising this brilliant podcast series. It's going to be really great to look at them all.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming in, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this with us. It's been a really fun couple of days.
Bring it on.
Yeah, thanks.